Hi guys, it's Hani here, and today I'm gonna show you how to make Easter lily cookies and cross cookies. So let's get started with today's tutorial. First, we're going to start with the lily. I'm using a 6-point star shape and using my handy cardstock template, tracing the outlines of the petals on a cookie. I'm using yellow edible marker by Food Doodlers. You can find these in my Amazon shop. I love using Food Doodlers when decorating cookies, and yellow is great for creating guides on cookies. Now to decorate, I'm using royal icing, and I thin my royal icing to about 25-second consistency for the petals. I wanted to avoid having cratering in my icing, and thicker icing helps with that. If you're still struggling with craters, you can also pipe a zigzag line in the middle of each petal and then let it crust and pipe icing over it. It helps with the cratering. I'm going to ice every other petal and letting those crust, and then ice the 2 top petals and then letting those crust, and then ice the bottom petal. This way we'll create a really nice definition. Otherwise you would just have one star shape. So now we're going to have lovely 6 petals, and I'm going to let the last petal crust, and then we can make the veins. To make the petal veins, I'm using a PME tip. This is a 1.5, and my icing is about piping consistency here. So pipe a curved line in the middle, and then we can airbrush. To airbrush, I'm going to use yellow and green airbrush color, starting with the yellow, airbrushing in the middle, and then hitting it just lightly with a green in the middle as well. If you don't have an airbrush, you could also use petal dust, yellow and green petal dust, but you have to make sure that everything is dry before adding the petal dust. Now we can add the details. So I'm doing the pistil here and also stigma at the very top, and we can create the stamens. And stamens are, I think these are called filaments. And then at the very top, I'm going to add anthers with orange royal icing. And this is all about piping consistency here. The orange could be slightly runnier. And that's how you can make Easter lily cookies. Not too bad, right? These are not too hard, guys, and they are so lovely. Now to make the cross cookies, I loved using this shape from Anne Clark. This is such a nice cross shape. I'm starting by brushing a thin layer of dark brown royal icing on a cookie, and this icing can be on a runnier side. 10-second, even runnier is fine. Just brush it on, creating an even layer of coverage. And then we're going to let that dry. Now the drying time, it's going to be maybe an hour or 2, not too long, and then we can add a thick layer of icing. You can see how stiff this icing is, and this is a lighter shade of brown, and you can use a palette knife or a small brush, whatever you have on hand. Just brush that on, creating one even layer, and we're going to texturize it with the paintbrush. You can also use a toothbrush. I've done that many times, but I find for this paintbrush works better because you have more control. So I'm going to create 2 directions basically. So I'm on a post, I'm going vertically, and then on the arm you can see I'm going horizontally here. Now you can obviously brush, remove the excess royal icing and just wipe it off into a dry paper towel. And then for the highlights, I'm just adding a little bit of white. Again, this is stiff royal icing here, and I'm going to blend it in. To create the wood playing, I'm going to use a thick scribe. This is a 2-in-1 tool or a boo-boo stick. You can also use a bamboo stick or a toothpick, but just use something that is on a thicker side, because I find that the fine tip of metal scribes just doesn't really work well with this design. You want to be able to scrape off a line of icing that is going to be visible. And then if the icing is accumulating on the tip, just wipe that off. And so once you're done with the wood grain lines or texture, you want to let that crust, and then we can add the border. To make the border, I am using piping tip number 2. And I colored my icing with ivory food coloring. You can also use light brown. I prefer using colored royal icing when I plan on painting it with gold luster dust. It gives better coverage. So you want to use either ivory or maybe light brown. and then let it dry, and then we can paint with gold luster dust. You want the icing to be medium consistency, not too runny but not too stiff. I'm using dry gold luster dust, adding some alcohol. I like to use Everclear, but you can also use vodka, or I in the past have used many times lemon extract. It worked really well. And then with a fine paintbrush, paint dry border. To make it even more festive, you could add some flowers, you could pipe some roses on here. I'm just gonna leave these as they are. And again, for a detailed step-by-step tutorial, you can visit my blog hanielas.com. If you are more of a picture learner, all the details are also listed in there, and I'm including a link in the description box. So that's it, guys. This is how you can make Easter lily cookies and cross cookies. These will look great on your Easter table, and I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.